We see 21% more domestic violence cases handled by Salt Lake County prosecutors. We're seeing 25% more calls to the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition. And we're seeing nearly 30% more in calls to our local public safety dispatchers.
That was Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson back on August 26th, talking about the increase they're seeing with domestic violence over the past 6 months. And tonight for our In Focus topic, we are highlighting National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's a sensitive but crucial topic across our state. Joining us tonight are two incredible survivors, Billie Scott and Brandy Mabey. Ladies, thank you for joining us tonight. I know it's not easy, but your stories could help save other people's lives, and for that, we appreciate you. All right, well, take us back to the beginning. When did you guys begin experiencing domestic violence? What happened? How long did you guys stay in the relationship? Billie, I'll start with you.
So when it started for me, this wasn't the first domestic violence relationship that I had been in. I had actually been in a couple before my previous marriage. So that's kind of where it started. I was in that relationship for about 5 years. We looked like the typical just happy family. We had 2 children, and on the outside everything looked great.
Brandy, what about you? Tell me about your story.
I also had a couple of different situations, but my last one was the one that kind of made me realize that everything was going on. And so, but that one was about 5 months, and I decided I was done, so.
I didn't know that you guys had gone through multiple instances. When you guys look back at that time in your lives, what were some of the red flags or warning signs that you now see that were there? And this time, Brandy, we'll start with you.
I think for me, some of the biggest red flags that I didn't notice at first were not being able to hang out with like your friends or your family, and just kind of, they always had control over what you did or where you spent your money, I think for me.
So it was like that control. What about you, Billie? What kind of red flags did you notice were happening in those situations?
They're very similar to Brandy's. Control over finances was a big one. I worked full time, yet I was never allowed to spend any money or go anywhere with my friends. I was very isolated. There was also a lot of jealousy, a lot of accusations of things, but those were just a couple that I thought were normal in relationships, and then later found out they were not.
Tell me about the kinds of feelings and emotions that you guys experienced during that time. How hard was it to leave, Billie?
Some of the emotions that I felt, there was a lot of confusion, but I just chalked it up to this is what marriage is. This was my first marriage. I didn't know any better. And when it finally came time to leave, it was really hard. It was something that I'm originally from the South, and in Southern culture, divorce usually isn't an option. And so I stayed a lot longer than I should have, and it wasn't until I moved here and was isolated from everyone that I decided that it was time to go.
Brandy, sometimes people ask, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? But they don't understand that it's not that easy. So what was it that finally got you to a place where you were ready to leave your relationship?
So during that time I had 2 small children, and when I realized that things were happening not only to me but to my children, that's when I made the decision that it was time to go.
And what about you, Billie? What was it that finally, as you said, it was so hard for you because of the culture that you grew up in? How far did it get, or what prompted you to finally be able to leave?
It got to a point where one of the last nights that I spent in my home, there was police involvement. And that was when I could no longer deny what was happening. And that's when I decided that it was time to go.
How long would you ladies say it was that you were in these relationships before you were able to leave? Let's start with you, Brandy.
Mine, like I said, was only about 5 months long. And so about the 5th month is when I realized that it was time to go, and I had gotten to the point where it had gotten too much to handle. and I knew I needed to leave.
And what about you, Billie?
I started having feelings of wanting to leave probably about 4 years in, but it wasn't until shortly towards the end of the 5th year that I decided to leave.
Okay, I want you ladies to just hold that thought. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the incredible stories of surviving domestic violence with Billie Scott and Brandy Mabey.
We all need to be paying attention to what's happening with our neighbors and our loved ones. And if something doesn't feel right, reach out for help. Talk to an advocate. If it's an immediate safety issue, always call 911.
That was Jen Oxborough, former executive director of the Utah Domestic Violence Coalition, back on March 25th, talking about the increase of calls and cases since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. And tonight, for our In Focus topic, we are highlighting National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's a sensitive but crucial topic across our state. Before the break, two incredible survivors, Billie Scott and Brandy Mabey, joined us to share their stories of survival. Lady, let's pick up where we left you off. You two actually met at South Valley Sanctuary, and now you two are really good friends. So tell me about that experience and what it was like going through that healing process together. We'll start with you, Brandy.
So I got there before she did, and it was very lonely, especially the first night getting there. It was definitely a shock. But I remember when she came in, I remember looking at her and just being like, I really want to get to know that girl. Like, she just seems like a really great person. And I remember her talking to me about bus passes. I'm like, I don't know anything about the bus, but I'd love to, help you out in anything else you have. So.
Yeah, Billie, tell me about that. What was it like when you met Brandy?
When I met Brandy, it was life-changing there. When I first got there, I had just moved to Utah a few months before, so I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends. I'd been very isolated. And so I remember when I first got to the shelter, I cried. Sorry.
We got to talk about this bowl of cereal.
So this is Brandy's first meal that she had at the shelter, where she was finally feeling normal again. So that bowl of cereal is actually very, very important.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the kitchen with everybody and being able to feel the sunshine and see that cereal. So this was a cake that I made while in the shelter for my son's birthday.
That's a really good looking cake. So do you have, just side note, do you have cake baking experience?
No. So this was all out of everything in that kitchen. I had no idea how the ovens worked in that kitchen. Whatever equipment they had for us, that's what I used. So it was a challenge, but it was fun.
And how long ago was this moment? How long have you guys been friends?
7 years.
Yeah, since 2013.
That's incredible. Okay, how is life now for you guys? How has the healing process been over the years? And has having each other there help with that process?
Yeah, so when we moved out of the shelter, she moved out about a month before I did. And so when I moved out, we actually made it a point to live. We found apartments that were a mile apart from each other, because we basically became each other's family. We were each other's support system. We helped with each other's children. And so from there, our friendship has grown, and going on this journey was initially very lonely, and it was so good that we were able to find each other and to be able to be there for one another.
And I remember when you guys were talking about just going through the process, you were talking about how lonely it is, and to have somebody there who knows almost exactly what you're going through probably means a lot more. Brandy, what was the healing process like for you?
It was definitely a struggle daily. I mean, there were new things that would come up. Even now there's still, something that someone says or you see something and it affects you. And being able to have someone like Billie, I'm able to reach out at any time and be like, I'm not okay. And I really do appreciate that she has stuck through me through all of this.
If there's anything that came out of this situation, it's a new good friend, right? There's anything that could have come out of this. Yeah. If there's other victims out there that may be watching this segment tonight, what would you ladies say to them?
I would say that you're not alone. You're worth it, and you matter. So if you can safely get out.
Brandy, what about you?
It's definitely going to be one of the hardest things that you do. It's going to be scary. You're going to fear sometimes for your life, and just reach out to someone. and just let them know that you're there and you need help.
All right, we have about a minute left. You guys were talking about, when you guys were going through the domestic violence, that you dealt with some isolation. What can family and friends do if they suspect that someone they love may be a victim of domestic violence?
For me, it's just being there to listen, letting them know that you love them. I know for me that it was the hardest thing when someone would ask me, "Are you okay?" I would be like, "Oh, I'm fine, everything's great." So you're not always going to get the answer that you want or you think that's happening, but just let them know that you're there and that you love them.
Perfect. Billie Scott and Brandy Mabey, thank you so much for joining us tonight and helping us with our coverage on National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Your stories are incredible, and to see you guys, thriving, you guys glowing, it just gives a lot of us hope, and we hope that with our conversation tonight, we'll be able to save lives. Thank you.
Thank you.